Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Rose here with Jessica Von Bun, and this is our Slow Horses Season 4, Episode 2 reaction and review. We are now out for a nice lunch with Jackson Lamb and New Catherine Standish. We see all of the wine that he wants,
Yeah.
regardless of whether or not she does. This episode was lit. I had a really, really good time with this episode. We got a lot more information, but we also got some answers. I mean,
Mhm.
kudos to you guys, Slow Horses, for not dragging out what really happened with River and David and we Adam Lockhead. Like we actually got real answers on this like right away. You didn't dilly-dally around with it.
Yeah, I mean the show's only 6
I
episodes,
know.
so that's one of the benefits of having a much shorter season is that you're not going to have a lot of episodes that are just filler, which I do appreciate. As much as I would like this show to be longer than 6 episodes, it's nice that they're able to not mess around and just give us some answers. And I think most of us with our detective caps on have been able to figure out kind of what happened there with David, where River showed up afterwards and was like, oh no, this has happened.
Yeah.
How are we going to deal with this? Okay, give me a minute to think. David presses the alert button and he's like, oh no's again. We have to speed this up and we have
Yeah.
to speed it up quickly. And yeah, how he's able to switch identities, put his phone, his ID on this guy who for some reason is carrying around identification, whether it's real or not, it doesn't matter. Clearly, this guy thought that this was going to be a really easy job. And
Yeah.
he was just going to come in, deal with David, get him in the bathtub, end him, and leave. That he's like carrying around a train receipt. He's got a passport. Like he really thought this was going to be just an easy ride in here, out there, and didn't understand what was really the situation going on with David. But River was really quick to be like, okay, I gotta react, which is something that River is either really good at sometimes or really bad at, which is doing things quickly. This time he was pretty good at it.
I was pretty impressed by my guy River Cartwright.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I did not have particularly high expectations for him given his long and extensive track record here. It's a very
Yeah.
weird situation as a Slow Horses fan to sit here and be like, oh, it's actually the other guy who sucked at his job this time and not River who did. The biggest surprise to me was that it was, River who turned this guy into the man with no face. I thought that David actually had done that already.
I actually thought that it was River that made sure that he was the man with no face, because as much as River was like, "Oh wow, this guy does look like me," but we need to make sure that whoever finds him really thinks that he's me. This made the most sense. But I love that they made it that this was actually a really difficult thing for him to do, and that he had a very physical reaction to doing this to someone who looks like
Yeah.
himself. Like I was trying to put myself in his spot. If I had to do that to somebody, I'm looking at them and they look like myself, I would have a really hard time.
Yeah,
And he's a trained agent and he had a hard time.
it was believable, and I think that's the thing with Slow Horses most of the time. Like if we overlook the fact that River Cartwright still has a job after all the things and mistakes that he's made,
All of them.
I think
All of them should be fired.
I know, but it's like even at least this part of it for River felt very, very much believable. I mean, speaking
Yeah.
of another thing that was more proof though that Adam Lockhead, or we know that that's not really his name. I
Yeah.
think his name is Bertrand or something. But like other evidence he's bad at his job here is that his whole idea was to get into David's place, have a little chit chat, get him up to the bathtub, and then take care of him there. There's just like so many different things that can go wrong along the way from point A to point B.
He was unarmed. That was the weirdest thing. It was like, okay, he came with, he was like, oh, I'm going to give him these pills and get him in the tub. And, he'll just have an oopsie in the tub. I'm like, okay, well, sure. Is this really going to look like he had an oopsie in the tub by this? I don't know that that would be the case, but you didn't have any sort of backup plan. You are in David Cartwright's house. And
Yeah.
even if you are someone who's been watching him and figured out that, oh, maybe he's having some problems with his memory or whatever. You had no backup plan. This was the only plan. David Cartwright is somebody that's not to be messed with,
Yeah.
whether he has memory problems or not. Like, stop it. You are new at your job.
This episode had a lot of questions for certain people when it comes to what they're good at and what they aren't. We're going to get into so much more, but be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are going to be here throughout all of season 4, looking at Slough House and their various misadventures. We do not want you guys to miss that. And also, later this week, if you love thrillers, The Old Man season 2 is premiering on FX. This is a show that Jess really got me on. I really, really like it. I'm excited to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that show too. These shows feel like they would have very similar fan bases. So if you haven't seen it, you like Slow Horses, you will probably like The Old Man on FX. But also, you can join our Patreon. We'll have a link for you below. For just $5 a month, you're able to help support Matt and I here to be able to continue to bring you videos. It also gives you the opportunity to be able to vote in polls over there on things that we cover here, things that we cover there. And speaking of things that we're going to be covering exclusively over on our Patreon, we are going to be covering the Penguin over exclusively on our Patreon. So be sure to join.
Thank you guys
Thank you
so much.
Okay, let's talk about the fact that David was only one of 2 targets.
Oh, okay. So here's what we know.
Speaking of the old man.
Yeah, apparently the old man is the other target here. I don't think we really need to spend a lot of time speculating on who this is unless it's just some other random old man we haven't met. Like it's got to be Lamb, right?
Right, it's got to be Lamb. And it sounds like they're talking about this idea that Lamb may or may not know what this secret is, that they're seeming to have these safety measures to just make sure that whatever it is that David knew and Lamb may or may not know is just gone for good.
Now, okay, do you think that Lamb actually knows it? Like, this is what I'm struggling with this episode. Because, okay, you do. I'm not sure. And I think the reason I'm not sure is just because that whole elaborate scene at the start of this episode where we see Lamb trying to get information out of David, which was at times very, very funny, but at the same time, was David, we all know that David is going through it. His memory is starting to fail him. How much of that was actually that, and how much of that was him putting on a little bit of an old sly dog act here on Jackson Lamb because he's trying to stall him for whatever reason?
Yeah, I think some of it was put on and some of it was happening. But I think that as much as he was able to hold on to whatever secret he is, he's doing his best. And we know that Lamb is trying to get the new Standish to get information on anytime David was ever in France or had anything to do with France. But I think now that we know a little bit more about their relationship, where it's like, okay, they have worked together. He worked for David. He even said that, he once had a heart before he ever worked for David Cartwright. I'm like, what did David do to you to turn you into this person? That's got to be a pretty dark story that I hope we get in season 5 or maybe season 6. We'll see. But I just feel like he would know something, but he may not know exactly what it is that is the reason why David is being targeted. Because Lamb, this is the thing about Lamb. Lamb is always 2 steps ahead of everyone. He knows everything. I mean, it feels like I had thought maybe he wasn't 100% sure if it was River or not in that first episode when he got to the car, that maybe then he was starting to figure it out. But it seems like he knew from the beginning. He figured it all out right away. So whatever it is that David knows about France or whatever's going on, Lamb also knows. And I think it is what you said, that David's been putting it on a little bit because he doesn't want Lamb to be able to make the connection to go back and be like, oh, that's secret.
Well, yeah, that it's the sort of situation where there might be 200 dark secrets that
That's right.
David, and then, Lamb just can't figure out, okay, which dark secret are we dealing with here,
That's
David?
right. They've been old spies a long time.
Yeah, and, we know that David has already made Lamb do some pretty bad stuff over the past several years as it is. So I
Mhm.
think anything is possible with the two of them. I think David, maybe in his mind, he's thinking, oh, maybe it's better for Lamb if he doesn't know everything. Or maybe he just thinks the less people that are involved in this at this point, the better, because maybe River can go in there a little bit more undetected because he's not somebody. Yeah, I know this is a funny thing to say with River, but it's like
Oh,
they don't
River.
necessarily know River's face as well as they know Jackson Lamb's face. He's already involved in it. I mean, are there probably 200 MI5 agents outside of Slough House I would feel more confident in? Sure. I mean, can we bring in Sid's ghost? I think Sid's still alive. But if she's not still alive, can we bring in Sid's ghost? She will also probably be better than River.
Sid was never really part of Sly House anyway. She was just there to watch
I
River.
know. That's what I mean. Like, there are competent people within this world, and yet,
Yes, look at Roddy Ho.
wait, okay. Roddy Ho
Okay,
is
listen.
technically competent.
Yes, he seems to be one of the most competent people there. He's just, not that well liked.
Roddy's going through it in this episode. What a surprise, Roddy. You steal the man's computer, and then people are mad at you when not only does it come out that, okay, you're doing that, but also Lamb's trying to get off here on a technicality when it comes to, oh, I was just saying I trying to identify River's body, and then somehow acting as though this is now Roddy's fault that he parsed that information, and it's
That's
like,
right.
okay, Roddy, you're the one who told them all that he was dead.
I would have thought that that's what Len was saying as well.
Well, yeah, Roddy. There are a lot of things to be upset about Roddy with over the course of the show. This is not one of them. I totally understand why Roddy said what he did.
Okay, let's get into River in France.
Yeah.
So he's out there trying to get information. He's at a cafe. They're like, oh, yeah, you can go down the street to this house, which is like a mansion on
Yeah.
this huge estate. And there's a guy that's outside of the cafe that's, on the phone, sort of like, oh, he's here or whatever. I'm like, okay, so is this guy then connected to the whoever's in the mansion down the street? Doesn't seem like it. We see River get to this mansion. He finds this photo. Who's in the photo? Robert Winters. Also, the guy who's living in this unlived mansion. He's in there as well. And then we've got the guy from the car on the street. So who is the guy who was in this car on the street? Is he friend or foe? Here's my tinfoil hat theory.
Okay.
He's French intelligence, and
Ooh.
he is associated with David and or Lamb, but probably David. I think that whatever secret David has, that this guy also knows about it. I think he's French intelligence and that they were working together and that he took River to not necessarily save him, but to also find out exactly what's going on with David. Has David spilled?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance that that guy is friend. Like, I agree with you just because if David had some sort of secrets that were traced to France on some level, of course, people in France are probably going to know things as well. And it also makes sense that if a lot of these bad people were seeing, Robert Winters, aka Bertrand, Hugo Weaving, who is the guy who gets into a fight with River in the place, like it makes sense that if these people are all, doing business out of France, that French intelligence would be looking at them and having some sort of deep understanding as to what's going on. Now, as for why, this possible French intelligence guy takes River, like the theory that I would have on it is just pretty simple that if you are River at this point, you just got in a fight with Hugo Weaving, you already know what happened back at David's, like you're probably not going to look at this guy at face value and be like, oh, sure, buddy, I'll trust you. We'll be friends now. You had this other guy's probably like, okay, I'll get him out of there. I will have quote unquote saved him. My actions will mean something. Then maybe he will listen to me then.
I just think that if he just wanted him taken out of the picture, he just would have let what was happening happen. It feels like whoever this person is has some sort of connection to David. in some kind of way, knows that this is his grandson, is like, okay, you know what? I'll get him out of here, but I need to know what he knows. Now, we
Mhm.
haven't read the books. We do not know what is actually going on. So if you do
Yep.
have spoilers, we would just ask that you guys don't leave them in the comments for us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for
Thank
being
you.
cautious with that. I will say, I'm a big fan of Hugo Weaving. I'm really excited to see him in this sort of villainous role. Now, at the same time, you got to get your house in order, man. Like, you've got your Adam Lockhead guy or Bertrand, whatever you want to call him. And yeah, he's gone. You've got some questions about it. The passport has been pinged. It's coming. It just feels like the measure of operation here, you had too much trust in this person. You clearly didn't give good enough orders as to how this person was going to deal with David in the event that he showed up there, like you said, without a lot of alternative backup plans to whatever it was that he was going to do. And also, you got taken out in your place by this French intelligence person. I mean, maybe you will be more notorious as this is going on, but insofar as like mustache twirling adversaries
Mhm.
go, you're not up there for me yet, man.
No, not yet. But let's talk about Robert Winters and that ID.
Yeah.
Because we had some more going on with Diana, of course, where she is still not first desk for unknown reasons,
Yeah.
because this guy, Claude, is so completely incompetent. My theory is just that she is so good at being a fixer that they just didn't want her on first desk, because she has to get her hands really dirty to be able to continue to be the fixer. But I don't know why she's not first desk. Claude is the worst. He's so bad at this. But anyway, she has figured out through someone that is under her that there's something funny about this passport,
Yeah.
and that they were like, this is a legit passport. It's been renewed every year, like through all the normal ways. All the idea of Robert Winters is all legit, but it looks like it was created, this whole identity, by MI5.
Okay, this is where I think this might be going, is that this identity was created by MI5, deep within the past. I think it was created to fulfill specific acts, mostly in the way that if there's certain things that have to be done here, like let's remember MI5, they've killed people. They've had, very ominous orders be issued on this show already. These are not all saints, but if you can attach a lot of stuff to a very bad or nefarious name that's
Mhm.
not really real, that gives you a little bit of creative license so that you can continue to do your business. You can pin it on somebody else,
Mhm.
somebody who, reporters can look towards that if they have any questions down the road. But I think what seems to have happened here is either we've had somebody who has just like straight up left MI5 and has sort of betrayed the group and has gone off and done their own thing, or
Mhm.
somebody with this other Hugo Weaving organization has figured out what this identity is, and then they're just trying to use it for their own purpose. And if I'm going to get really, really crazy here,
Yeah.
what if they know that Robert Winters is a name attached to MI5? So while they're having all this stuff happen, it kind of comes out that it's somebody with MI5, and it makes the people within Britain not trust their own organizations anymore.
I love that theory. Like, it feels like it could be somebody who's past MI5, who was
Mhm.
so bad that they didn't even make it to Slough House. They just got straight up fired,
Yeah.
and they took this identity with them. But the idea that they could be using this identity to be able to sort of, get this out in the open, that this is what they would do. They would do something like this. How could you trust them? Is a much bigger story. It's a much juicier story.
I will admit, though, I'm right there with you with the how is Diana not first desk at this point? Because this is
Oh my lord, I don't get it.
it's the weakest part of the season right now to me. I'm assuming that there is a reason why this is happening. I think Slow Horses, I almost just called Slough House as a show, but I think Slow Horses is a smart enough show to know that we're all going to be sitting here and being like, why is this loser in charge? Like, what does he bring to the table? And I have to think that this is one of those instances where he probably knows somebody, or he's a buddy with a higher up, and there's some sort of like nepotism that's going on here. If we're to assume that Rivers still has a job because of nepotism, I don't think it's a crazy thing to think that Claude has a job for that same reason. But
Mhm.
if that's the case, they got to explain it. And maybe it's as simple as what you said about her being a fixer and they need her in that position. But I need you guys to say it. I cannot have this be ambiguous. It will just drive me crazy.
Maybe this is why the new Standish is at Slough
Mm,
House. She is somebody who we've learned very quickly is a nosy bee, is
yeah.
in everybody's business, has completely gone through Lamb's entire office by cleaning it.
Yeah.
So, is it possible that she nosed around and she found out something about Diana that stopped her from getting first desk? And Diana was like, bye, you're going to, Slough House and I'm done with you.
I
And she just doesn't know.
I certainly think it's possible at this point. Like there's got to be a reason why she's there that has not been fully explained. Like you said earlier, Lamb is already doing some negotiating with her that she can use her nosy powers for good rather than evil, and he can figure out why she's there and where all this is ultimately going. And my view is that Standish is eventually going to be back at Slough House. I don't think anybody wants this show long term to not have You would be emotionally broken if they do not put Standish back at Slough House.
Here's my real worry with this. Yes, I'm going to be broken if they take
Yeah.
away my Standish. She is my all-time favorite. I love her.
Hmm.
I've been saying, and I still feel this in my gut, that the whole fake out with River at the beginning, this sort of fake out death, that it's like, oh, we built you
Yeah.
guys up. Oh, it's a fake out. Now the audience is all like, they've done that. Everybody's going to be
Yeah.
fine. It's all going to be fine. I think that they did that so that they would relax the audience so that they can take out another member of, Slough House later on in the season. And I think that person's going to be Standish. Because how do you end up then with two Standishes? If Standish comes back, then what happens to Standish number 2?
Can you?
She's not going back to the park, so she's just getting fired. And if you kill her off, does it mean anything to the show? No one's gonna be like, oh my god, I can't believe Dollar Store Standish is gone. It's just not a big enough death for the show. That's my worry. They are gonna bring her back and she's gonna get killed. And it's gonna kill Lamb and it's gonna kill me.
No, okay, this officially cannot happen because you guys cannot kill Jess. You also cannot kill Standish on the show. Okay, so if I had a theory as to what's going on here, we spent some time in this episode with Marcus, who was having a conversation with Shirley, and then that we find out, okay, he has $10,000 he owes, and he's going to be very, very desperate. He's trying to preserve his relationship. He's trying to preserve his future. He's got a really, really big problem. That is obvious, but what happens when people get really, really desperate? They will do crazy things
Mhm.
that are out in the field. And this is about to get very dark, so I apologize for this in advance. I don't think that Marcus is going to die. But what I think is going to happen is I think Marcus's recklessness is going to cause Shirley to have to overcompensate, do something out in the field, and then Shirley is going to die. And then
Oh.
Marcus is going to have to live with the fact that, his actions pushed her in this direction because it kind of feels like Shirley reasonably has her head on straight at this point. She's overcome some of her obstacles. I'm not saying, she's fully straight and narrow forever, but it just sort of feels like once you're starting to do a little bit better in Slough House, that is kind of the time in which you have to go. Louisa's going through it with a lot of stuff right now, so
Yep.
she's clearly got plenty of conflict. Once again, JK, my guy, it is abundantly clear.
Your guy, that happened all at once.
I I love this guy, and I don't know why. He's so weird, but it is so immediately apparent why he is there because he doesn't talk. He doesn't really seem to contribute anything except occasionally shouting. So I get why he's there. My point is that there's a universe where Shirley actually ends up being competent, and in that case, she's just got to go, and then Marcus is just going to get even more miserable.
Yeah, I need them to tell me what JK's deal is because what is it that he's bringing to the team? Why did they keep him and not just fire him? Even with somebody like Roddy Ho, who's very difficult to work with, you've been able to see already what his value is, that he's actually really good at this if you can sort of weed through the attitude problem. But so far with JK, he's just not saying anything and he hasn't contributed anything.
I'm hoping there will be a larger purpose for it. Beyond just the one-liners and the moments that I really, really love. Like the show is still delivering on all of that for me. I'm pretty happy with where we are
Mhm.
in episode 2. We'll see exactly what happens from here. But for now, hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss anything else on Slow Horses. Also, join our Patreon. Our link is in the description below. $5 a month. You can help support us, vote in polls, and also exclusively, we are covering the Penguin there on
Mhm.
Patreon. Thank you so much to those who are supporting us, and we'll see you
Thank you.
here next time.